how often you should be posting, what the hell does the algorithm say? Today on the Revo show with our special guest, we're going to handle those problems and a whole lot more, all on today's show. Salon owners are some of the most amazing people on planet Earth. The only problem is sometimes their hearts are so big and they give so much of themselves to their staff and guests that it creates unintended consequences. Our goal is to change the industry by elevating the way the rest of the world sees salons, spas, and barbershops and give it the credibility that it truly deserves. This is the Salon Owner Revo Show. Today's podcast is brought to you by Salon Scale, allowing you to charge by what you know, not by what you feel. So welcome to today's Revo Show. With me, as always, is Doug Campbell. What's up, Doug? How are you this morning?
Doing well. It's a beautiful day here.
Dude, I love it. And so Doug and I crossed the coast, California and Florida. But the scales have been tipped in my favor today with another Californian. In fact, on the show with us today, social media expert and all-around awesome chick, Jamie Dana. What's up, Jamie? Good to have you on the show today, too.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. It's really cool, to be honest, to see the behind the scenes of all this broadcast stuff. I'm just stoked to be here. This is cool.
Sometimes we bring a little bit of fancy to the show. We do our best and make sure that things will. And inevitably, something breaks like it does. But, we do what we can, and we make it happen. By the way, we're, like I said, Jamie and I are in Cali. Doug is in Florida. Where are you from? Meaning listeners, audio, and or video viewers. Where are you from? Do me a favor, sound off in the chat. We'd love to know. But, Jamie, you were just talking about social media burnout, right? So many people are like, oh, my God, if you don't have a Pinterest ads account, or if you're not on Clubhouse, or if you're not on TikTok right now, you are missing the game. And I think as a salon owner, you can get thrown 1,000 things that you think are very valuable that distract you. Can we talk about that today? Because I think that's real. And if you guys agree with me that burnout is a real thing, would you comment with the word burnout below? But yeah, would you talk about that for a little bit today, Jamie?
Yeah, to be honest, this is actually something that I've been talking about on my Instagram. And when we started chatting this morning, you're like, let's talk about burnout, because this is something that I have been going through myself. And I finally feel like I'm like coming out of it. Like, I feel like I'm like coming out of the ashes and I'm like coming back to the fire that I've had inside of me. And I didn't realize that I was in such a kind of like a darker place, whether that was like the winter blues or just, and I live in Southern California. So like, let's be real, like we're not really getting the super bad winter blues here, but
it rained yesterday.
It rained like a week ago and I'm still recovering, right? I cannot say anything bad. I know there are people that live in snow for like 5 months. So, okay, let's be real here. But at the same time, I think what I was realizing, not just with myself, but with the stylists and salon owners in my audience, is I think for so often, for so many of us in this last year, I mean, we're just coming up on the 1-year anniversary of salons being shut down here in the United States. And I think that we haven't really processed everything that went on this year. And I think for a lot of us, we are just we're so good at being resilient. And this last year, we had to be resilient. We had to pivot. We had to move in different directions. We had to keep going. And I think a lot of us haven't realized, like, whoa, we went through a lot. And not just like us, but like our industry went through a lot.
Clients, guests, everybody, right? I mean, everybody got totally rocked with like not having to get their hair cut for months on end, or having secret, garage haircuts and bathroom haircuts.
Easy,
Everybody basically like got a hairdresser haircut for the first time this last year. You know what I mean? Like all these weird things happened. It was trauma. If you look at it that way, it was a traumatic experience for a lot of people to figure out, like what new reality was for them.
Yeah. And I think for so many, like salon owners out there, are we going to be able to stay open? Are we going to be able to reopen? Or am I going to be able to pay my staff? Am I going to be able to have a business at the end of this? And even just going through that is a traumatic experience. And then as a salon owner, having to support your stylists who are now going through the same emotions themselves. Will I have a job? Will I not have a job? Will my clients come back? And then on that end, the ripple effect is so big, right? Having to support the clients in the chair, having to hear their stories and everything that's going on. It's been a lot. And I think for a lot of us, we just kept going. And this is definitely something that I used to do in the past, where I never realized that I was burnt out or that I was feeling that. And it's just because I just kept going. I'm like, well, I don't have time to process. I don't have time to deal with that. I just got to keep going. We just got to keep moving forward, right? Because we have things to do.
Sure.
And that's one of those things where I think for so many of us, we haven't sat down and even processed it yet. So I think for me, I was dealing with burnout on the business side, but then you're trying to show up on social media. You're trying to do all the things that you're supposed to do. The algorithm has changed. The algorithm hasn't changed. It's just so much. And I feel like I can't be alone in this, right? I know that I'm not the only one feeling this way of the burnout in the business, but then bringing it over to social media and just feeling like I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to talk about today. I don't even want to show up. And I'm sure there's a lot of people feeling that as well.
Do you think, Jamie, that so many people, like, you know, there's this kind of like Instagram fraud thing that happens, right? Mm-hmm. Where people are like, oh, look at my super awesome, perfect life that I'm doing all this stuff. And like in a normal reality, you're like, yeah, I don't really live every day like that, but on Instagram, my life's amazing. Right. But do you think it's like just because the gap's even stretched further, people are like, man, I can fake a little, but I can't fake that much. Right. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm crying and dying on the inside, but like, okay, let me put on this smiley face one more time for my photo shoot with my freaking friends. You know, that's possible that gap's just getting stretched more?
Yeah. Well, and it's funny. I actually polled my audience on my Instagram stories. If you follow me on Instagram and you see my stories, you know I love to do polls.
If people don't follow you, just drop out your social so people can track you down, because I know everybody wants to stalk when they hear.
Yes,
so
absolutely. Yeah. So Instagram, it's Jamie Dana Hairstylist, and then everywhere else on the internet, it's just Jamie Dana. So YouTube, you know, everywhere else on the internet. Really, in reality, I'm only on YouTube and Instagram. So let's be real here. Jamie Dana on YouTube. Jamie Dana Hairstylist on Instagram. Yeah, I'm not really any other places. But anyways, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, but I did poll my audience on my Instagram stories, and I asked them, I said, what is one word that describes how you're feeling about Instagram right now? And the answers were just so incredible to read. A lot of it was overwhelmed, I'm feeling drained, I'm feeling burnt out, I'm feeling over it, right? The words that commonly come up with the social media overwhelm. But one of the words that kept coming up was fake or too perfect. And I asked them, I said, how do you feel like about showing up on Instagram right now? And a lot of them said, it feels like I have to be perfect all the time. It feels like everything has to be curated, right? Whether it's your Instagram feed or the stories that you're putting out there, or the, like you said, the photo shoots that you're taking. And to be honest, I do feel like there is a line, right? We do have to show up, and we do have to kind of have a little bit of a professional version of ourselves on Instagram, right? I do think that there are certain things that do attract the right kind of clients to your Instagram page and get them to click the follow button, right? I definitely teach that. And I don't think that we should just get rid of all the strategy that we've ever learned and just be like, okay, I'm just going to ignore that and just go straight to posting whatever I want. There is strategy to it as well. But at the same time, that overwhelming feeling and the pressure to have to be perfect all the time, that's a lot to handle. And I mean, I think for me personally, if I can be totally vulnerable and honest, I think for me, it's been hard to even sometimes show up on my Instagram stories, because a lot of what I've shared is my life, and I haven't been able to have my life as so much because of COVID, right? Because of
you're not grabbing a coffee and hanging out and going and doing the things. So you're like, let me show you me and my jammies one more time.
Yeah, here's my leggings for the 366th day of the year, right?
You know, leggings that he's been wearing. I've been really impressed, Doug, with your legging selection. It's been solid.
Thank you. I worked on it hard. I mean, it takes me. There's a lot of research goes into that.
Solid.
To be honest, there really is, right? You know, but so I think that's one of those things where I haven't even been able to share what I love to do. And like I said, to be vulnerable, I feel like sometimes I want to share things, but I'm worried about what people are going to say, right? What people are going to perceive of, well, Jamie's out at another thrift store again. Like, is that even safe? Or, you know, Jamie's sitting out outside at a restaurant with her husband. Is that even safe? Or Jamie's doing X, Y, and Z, you know? And so that's just something that I have had to think through and have to, you know, sometimes kind of worry about. Is that okay? Can I post this? How's it going to be perceived? And at the end of the day, I do have to realize, you know, there are going to be people that aren't going to agree with certain things, and they may unfollow, and that's okay too. Like, that's totally fine. I'm here to support the people who want to be here and who are excited to learn from me. But it is in the back of your mind. You know, you do get those DMs at the level that I'm at. You do get those DMs, and you do get that negativity. So, and I'm sure, especially from a salon owner standpoint, maybe you have gotten one DM or a couple DMs that have been negative from a client. Right. Or from a random stranger, right? And it does sit with you. It does make you go, oh, like, should I not post that? And you do get that fear or thought in the back of your mind, you know?
Totally. Doug, what are your thoughts on some of this on burnout for you, and how this plays out for the salons that we work with?
Well, yeah, I think it's definitely because it's matching up your personification that you're putting out there on social media and where you really are. Mm-hmm. I think the thing that's been coming up for us a lot is authentic. Just coming from an authentic place, because you can be professional and authentic and not be real and go into, because you get too much into what I should or what I shouldn't. I think it's more like what's professional and what's authentic. So I think if you can get those two boxes checked off, then I think you're heading down the right act, because you can't get this swirling thing of, should I put that or should I not? Should I be this person? Should I be that person? What am I putting out there? So I think you're just drilling down too. That's really a lot of stuff that we looked at, especially coming out of what we just went through. I think a lot of people have drilled down to and said, look, I just need to be my authentic self.
Right.
Be professional, but be my authentic self. Because there's less jeopardy. And I think if someone does DM you on something, as long as you came from that authentic place, you have lots more solid ground to stand on than if you were gaming something in some way or another.
Totally. Yeah. By the way, Jamie, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, can we talk about how you've busted this burnout, how you've handled it, and what you do to make sure that you don't constantly get caught up in that roller coaster ride of social? Would you be down to handle that when we come back from break?
Yes. Let's definitely talk about that.
All right, right on. Well, guys, stay with us. If you're enjoying today's show, comment enjoying in the comments below, and we'll be right back after this short commercial break from our sponsor.
Hey, HPSA listeners, let me ask you this. Are you tired of not knowing what your hair color is costing you on every appointment and watching it chew up your profit? Well, with Salon Scale, we take the guesswork out for you. Using a mobile app paired with a Bluetooth scale, Salon Scale will tell you exactly what your color is costing you on every bowl mix down to the gram. As you mix, Salon Scale will also digitally store your formulas and track how much product is being used in real time, so you can manage your inventory, cover your expenses, and generate more profit in your salon. Use promo code HPSA10 to get 10% off an annual subscription. Salon Scale, the new standard for mixing color.
So welcome back. We're talking with Jamie Dana about social media burnout. How do you bust burnout? How do you break through? And how do you make sure that you don't get caught up in this inauthentic, what's the word I'm thinking of? The imposter syndrome, right? We get in this imposter syndrome where social media world becomes what you're showing everybody else, but really on the inside, you're not feeling it. Jamie, you've been talking about this because you just recently went through this, right? Where you were overwhelmed. And like you said, you're not on all these other social media channels. You were kind of took a break from YouTube for a little bit. Talk to me about how did you overcome that burnout? How did you come back? And how do you kind of prevent yourself from following every single latest trend on planet Earth?
Gosh, it's one of those things where I feel like, and I don't know if anybody here that is watching has been feeling this. And if you have, just go ahead and just type a yes in the chat or no in the chat if you're not. But I think I've seen so many educators lately, or just even people on Instagram or the gurus out there saying, you got to make sure that you're posting reels. You got to make sure that you're posting on your feed and your stories at least once a day. You got to make sure that you're on Clubhouse. You got to make sure that you are posting on the Facebook page. Like, have you been active over there? Like, what about LinkedIn, right? What about TikTok?
Right.
What about Pinterest? Right. And the list can just go on and on and
on.
And not only are you hearing this from educators, but you're seeing other people talk about it, right? So it's one thing to kind of maybe say like, okay, well, that's not for me. Like maybe that educator's saying, this is the next thing, you have to do it, right? And you're like, okay, whatever. But then you're seeing all of these people you follow posting about Clubhouse or posting about all these other things that they're doing, sharing their TikTok videos and creating reels. And then I think sometimes it's not just what we're hearing from the outside, but what we think in our own brains of like, well, if they're doing that, then I should be doing that too.
Right.
And
right. Yeah,
I
totally.
definitely found myself even in this. And like I said, I teach Instagram. This is what I do, right?
Right.
But I found myself in this, I should be creating that kind of content, or I should be showing up in this way because they're doing that. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't necessarily a comparison to other people, like, oh, like, look at how great they're doing, I should be doing that too. It was just more like, well, I got to keep up.
Yeah,
and
they're there, so should I, basically.
Right, and keeping up with this social media world, right? Like, should I be doing this? Should I have a podcast? Should I have, but be on Clubhouse? Like, should I do all the things, right?
Yeah.
And
totally.
One piece of advice that I got way back in the beginning of starting my business was focus on 1 to 2 things at a time. Totally. And that has been something that I've really stayed true to, is focusing on 1 to 2 things at a time that I love, that bring money into my business, that serves my audience, and that's it. And it's so freeing because it's given me permission to not have to follow the next trend, not have to do all these things. And when I say focus on 1 to 2 things at a time, I think Instagram in and of itself is like 5 platforms, right? You have Instagram stories, you've got the feed, you've got IGTVs, we've got now Instagram reels, we've got guides
your
and
highlights,
all of these things, right?
Yeah,
so many things. So when I say focus on 1 to 2 things, maybe for some of you listening, that's just literally posting on the feed and posting on your Instagram stories. That's it. And those are your 2 things that you're focusing on. Yeah. And I actually asked this yesterday on my Instagram stories of like, what are the 2 things that you're going to focus on to my audience? And so many of them were like Instagram and serving my clients, or Instagram and TikTok, right? Or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And pick the 2 things. And I think what so many people don't realize is I really only focus on 2 things. I literally only have my Instagram. And I don't even do all the pieces of Instagram. I really don't do Instagram, IGTVs. I rarely do Instagram Live. I barely do Instagram Reels, right? And I'm so-called the Instagram expert in the industry, but
sure.
I really only focus on a few things on Instagram, the things that I love to do and the things that I know serve my audience. And then I have my YouTube channel. And to be honest, my YouTube channel, the only way that can live and breathe and survive on its own is because I do have a team helping me. I really, at this point, just show up and film the videos and everybody else takes care of the rest. I don't do a lot for the YouTube. And I do think that becomes part of the conversation as well, as we see so many of these educators or gurus doing all of the things. You see Gary Vee, right? He's like, show up everywhere. And in reality,
he also has a team of 150 people who are doing stuff for him on all those channels. And I think you nailed it, right? And I see Maggie on here saying Clubhouse is sucking people's lives and neglecting the core things that are already working for them. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's such a massive thing. And I think to your point, man, Gary Vee's got tons of team that's making stuff happen. I just did a training session with D-Rock, who's Gary Vee's guy, who shoots all of his stuff. He did a whole training session for me and a couple other people. And it was just massive because, D-Rock runs a lot. And they're just like, look, just shove as much out there as you can on this platform, and Gary is a content machine, but he just sits in front of a camera and then somebody goes and spits that out for him.
Does it all.
And does it and like amplifies it. And I think sometimes, to your point, Jamie, you brought it up at the beginning, but even for us, right? Like producer Bob's on with us making this happen. And like I'm sitting here and I'm recording it, but I'm not going to touch it. It's going to go to Bob. It's going to go to Tara. It's going to go to Tyrell. It's going to go to Molly. It's going to go to like my whole team, and all this stuff is going to get put out. And I think sometimes salon owners can get caught up in competing with people and going, I'm overwhelmed because I'm trying to do it all on my own, as opposed to focusing on what's profitable, what generates a return, and get people's tools to create that leverage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people aren't talking about that. They're not talking about the fact that everybody's got a team doing this. But I think especially as salon owners, because you do have a team, you have a team of stylists. And maybe for some of you, you do have a team that is helping you post on Instagram or create the content or whatever. But for some of you, you don't, and you're trying to do it all, and you're trying to manage a staff, and you're trying to keep your business open, and you're trying to do all these things, and no wonder why you're feeling burnt out and feeling like, what am I going to post on Instagram today? Because I literally have nothing left, So yeah, I mean, I know we had talked about how do we overcome this, right? Because I think for a lot of us, I think number one is giving yourself permission to focus on 1 to 2 things and to not stress about having to do it all. And I think, like I said, I do think the big one on Instagram right now is Instagram Reels, and there's a learning curve there. And will I say you should never learn them? No, like I definitely think that there is a benefit to learning them. But do you have to pour all your time and energy into them? No. Do what feels right to you and do what serves your audience, serves your clients, serves the people that you have already created in your little world, right? So how do we overcome that though? So I first think is, give yourself permission to just do what feels right to you. And then the second thing is take some time off, and not necessarily take some time off in your world, but take some time off of social media. Yeah. Take some time off logged out. And again, I am the person that is the Instagram expert in this area. And I'm saying, take some time off. I know for myself that I have given myself permission to not post on the weekends. And that is something that took a while for me to get to, because I was always, I always had a story up. I always made sure that my little circle was lit up, right? I always made sure that I was showing up and sharing something valuable or just sharing something. And I've given myself permission to not have to do that. And if I'm not feeling it that day, I'm not feeling it that day. I don't need to show up and create something. I do enough outside of that. And so if you have been feeling this, I almost call it like a repulsiveness, like where you look at Instagram and you're like, I just can't even right now. And yet kind of what Doug was talking about earlier, right? Of just like showing up and posting anyways, because I have to, right? It's just like, no, if you've been feeling that, maybe it's just time to log out. Maybe it's just time to turn it off. And when I mean log out, literally log out, don't scroll the feed, turn it off for 24 hours. Yeah. You'd be so shocked at how much our reflexes just go pick up the phone, go scroll, go look at stuff, go read the comments, go whatever. And no one's going to miss you. If you don't respond to DMs for 24 hours, it's okay. Life will move on. It's going to be fine. And so, I think that's one of the big things that when I'm feeling in that place, I'm like, I just got to, it's like throw the phone on the other side of the room. I got to turn it off.
Totally. Doug, you're pretty good at pulling back from social media, said sarcastically, because, to your point, you kind of pull away from it. But we built into our 7-day, we're doing something, Jamie, that we didn't tell you about. We do something called a 7-day Beautiful Minds Challenge. And one of the challenges during the 7-day Beautiful Minds program, which, by the way, if anybody wants access to that totally free challenge, just comment 7-day and we'll shoot it to you. But in that challenge, we have a social media blackout for 7 days. No social media, delete the apps off your phone, and just totally go dark for 7 days and just see what happens. And somebody said when they did it, they said, I realized I check my phone between 20 to 40 times a day, which, by the way, I think mine would be a hell of a lot higher than that.
Mine would be way worse, to be honest.
And they said it was 20 to 40 times a day the first day, and then it started slowing down and slowing down and slowing down. And I just realized how addictive that process had become in my life. And even for me, I'm like, I can't take 7 days off from social media because my whole business runs on social media. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of one of those things that if you can really be disciplined enough to just, delete the app for a day, delete the app for a week. Because look, if your business runs on it, I mean, Jamie, I can't imagine you're like, let me just delete social media for the rest of my life, because then your business wouldn't exist. But could you just get that little break, that little window, that little breather to just kind of disconnect for a minute, reset your mind, get it right, and get back in again?
Yeah. And I think I find once you do it, you're like, oh, I can actually do this, right? I think it's just that it feels a little scary of and I know that there is a salon owner or a stylist watching this thinking, I can't do that because what if that client DMs me, or what if we miss out on this thing or that thing? And it's like, the world is not going to fall apart. If you don't get back to them for 24 hours, it's going to be okay. And even maybe for you logging out for 7 days, there might be some DMs that come in, but post about it. Just say, hey, I'm going to be gone for 7 days. If you send me a DM, I'll get back to you, kind of thing. You could literally post that and it'll be okay. You're not going to die. No one's going to die because you took 7 days off of the platform. But I do think that the more you do it, the more your brain goes, okay, this is going to be all right. And I know for me, I do the 24-hour thing quite often, whether it's on the weekends or whatever. It really is a helpful reset for sure.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, by the way, this has been an awesome topic today. Thanks everybody for chatting in. And thank you every single one of you for your comments and for your insights and for your knowledge and for playing along today. Because I think, Jamie, you bring up some amazing points is that sometimes we deserve a little bit of a blackout and to kind of get away. There's probably some new term besides keeping up with the Joneses. There's it's probably keeping up with the Kardashians. That probably was the appropriate way to say that. But I think it is one of those things of like trying to keep up with, any of those people that you look up to. And I mean, Jamie, you've got an amazing following on Instagram, and you and I know a couple other people kind of in this space that do some really amazing work. And I know how hard those guys work to stay where they are, guys and gals work to stay really on top of their game. But I really do think the more you can find an opportunity to take a break, take a time out, and take some space. And like you said, get really specific. And I love this detail. This is my big takeaway from today. You said not even just picking one or two platforms, but pick one or two things to master on the platforms, because to your point, Instagram has now become almost 7 social medias in one. Yeah. As opposed to what it was 5 or 6 years ago. And so that no wonder you're stressed out, is you got 7 social medias begging for your attention that are like 7 more social medias.
And you have to learn all of that too, right? Like Instagram Reels, there is a learning curve to it. It's not like all of a sudden like, bam, I can just throw up an Instagram Reel, because the videos that you maybe have mastered to and learned how to create 3 years ago don't work for Instagram Reels. And maybe you're finding that like, I'll just put a couple hair clips together and turn it into an Instagram Reel and I can check that box. No, it doesn't work that way. Instagram Reels is a whole new piece of content, a whole new piece of entertainment. So yeah, it's a lot. And I do think that focusing on what am I going to focus on? Okay, am I going to focus on just my Instagram feed and your Instagram stories? That's enough. You don't have to do all the other things. And then maybe once you do feel like you've gotten to that place where you're like, okay, I'm feeling really good about what I'm creating for the Instagram feed and I'm showing up consistently and, our stories are doing really well. Maybe I do want to sprinkle in a video here or there, or one Instagram Reel here or there. Then you can do that. But it's only after you've fully mastered those things. And I think that's really going to help separate the people who are here for the long run and the people who are going to burn out. And I watch it happen. I see people that I sometimes watch and I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, they're creating all of this amazing content. It's so valuable. It's incredible. And then I watch them burn out and I see them ghost for a month, right? And that's not a good way to do it, right? I would rather just be slow and steady and just do my thing,
I like it. Well, let's get Doug a few more followers. Doug, what's your Instagram handle?
Rocking Doug.
Rockin' Doug on Instagram, and we're gonna beat you up, buddy. So you can, or we're gonna beat your Instagram up so we can get you some more followers. But yeah, I mean, if you want to learn how to slow it down and pace yourself right, Rockin' Doug is the channel to follow. Also, do me a favor, follow Jamie Dana, hairstylist, on Instagram. If you don't already, you probably do, because she's a freaking rock star and puts out great content. Also, just recently relaunched YouTube and's got some great content over there at Jamie Dana. Jamie, thanks so much for hanging out with us. As always, pleasure to have you. I appreciate your insights and ability to get raw with us, get real with us, and talk about what the power of busting burnout can do. Thank you guys so much for watching the show, and have a great rest of your day. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Hey, guys. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Evo Revo podcast.
Today's podcast was brought to you by Salon Scale, allowing you to charge by what you know, not by what you feel.
Please subscribe, leave us a review, and you can always get more information, including show notes and the video episodes at evorevopodcast.com.